Why mindset matters more than money. When we think of millionaires, we often picture the obvious: luxury cars, big homes, exotic vacations. But behind every visible symbol of wealth lies something invisible: a mindset. The real difference between the rich and everyone else isn't just the size of their bank accounts, it's how they think, and more importantly, how they think differently. You can hand two people the same opportunity, the same amount of time, or even the same amount of money, and watch them get radically different results. Why? Because one of them is operating with a wealth mindset, and the other with a scarcity mindset. One sees a path, the other sees a wall. One asks, "How can I make this work?" The other says, "This will never work for me." The good news is this: the millionaire mindset isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. It's not about having perfect habits or making every right decision. It's about developing a mental blueprint that pushes you to grow, take responsibility, and play a bigger game. This audiobook is not about quick hacks or get-rich schemes. It's a deep dive into the 6 mindset shifts that set the wealthy apart, not just financially, but emotionally and strategically. These shifts are not always comfortable, but they're powerful. And once you see the world through this lens, you'll never see yourself or your potential the same way again. Here's the truth: wealth is rarely an accident. It's a result of how someone thinks, how they make decisions, and how they view themselves in relation to money, time, and opportunity. If you can shift the way you think, you can shift everything else: your habits, your results, and your income. You may not have millions in your account right now, but if you build the right mindset, the money becomes a byproduct of who you've become. That's the power of this work. And it starts right here. Let's dive into the first millionaire mindset. Lesson 1. The rich believe they create their reality. If there's one core belief that separates millionaires from everyone else, it's this: they believe they are the cause, not the effect, of their reality. They don't wait for good things to happen. They don't rely on luck, timing, or other people to determine their future. They see themselves as the ones in charge. This doesn't mean the rich never experience hardship. It doesn't mean they control everything. But their default response to problems, opportunities, and circumstances is simple: what can I do about this? Most people are trained to think like victims. They believe life happens to them. They blame their parents, their past, the government, the economy. They say things like, "If only I had more time," or "I just wasn't born with those advantages." And while those reasons may be valid, they're also disempowering. Wealthy thinkers flip that script. They ask better questions, not "Why is this happening to me?" but "What can I learn from this? And how do I use it?" This mindset of ownership is the foundation of all growth. If you believe you're in control, you start looking for moves instead of making excuses. You stop waiting for permission. You stop blaming and start building. That's how wealth begins, not with money, but with agency. You'll often hear successful people talk about the moment they got sick of their own story. That's the turning point. That's when they stopped outsourcing responsibility and started saying, "If it's going to happen, it has to start with me." This doesn't mean you become harsh with yourself. It means you become honest. If you're not where you want to be financially, you ask why without shame. If you have unhelpful habits, you identify them without judgment. And then you begin the process of rewiring your beliefs, actions, and identity to reflect the person you want to become. Millionaires think like creators. When they don't see the path, they build one. When they're told no, they ask why. They're not interested in fitting in or playing small. They want to grow, lead, and shape the world around them, not just react to it. This belief isn't something you need to be born with, it's something you practice. You train your brain to say, "This is my life, I'm the author, I can rewrite the script." Once you start believing you create your reality, your relationship with problems changes. Instead of seeing obstacles as reasons to stop, you see them as invitations to rise. You stop asking if something is possible, you start asking how to make it happen. This is the mindset behind every self-made millionaire. They weren't handed certainty, they created momentum through action. They didn't wait for ideal conditions, they used what they had. That's the power of self-responsibility. It puts you in motion, it keeps you focused on what you can control instead of what you can't. Think about how this shows up in daily life. When most people feel stuck, they wait for someone to give them a solution, a job offer, a bailout, a breakthrough. But wealthy thinkers look inward and ask, what skill do I need to learn? Who do I need to become to solve this? That shift is everything. It turns every situation into an opportunity to grow. It transforms setbacks into training, and it builds something far more valuable than external wealth, internal power. There's also an emotional freedom that comes from this belief. When you stop blaming others, your family, your boss, your past, you free up mental space. You stop leaking energy through resentment. You take that energy back and reinvest it into your goals. Of course, this doesn't mean you're responsible for everything that's ever happened to you, but from this moment forward, you are responsible for how you respond. And that's where your power begins. This is why you'll often find millionaires working on their mindset as much as they work on their business. They journal, they reflect, they study their patterns because they know that their results don't come from luck, they come from who they are. So ask yourself, where in your life are you still waiting to be rescued? Where are you hoping something out there will change instead of changing how you think, decide, and act? You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to take responsibility for your next move. That's where the millionaire mindset begins, with ownership, not perfection. When you believe you create your reality, you stop asking for a map, and you start becoming the compass. Lesson 2. The rich focus on opportunity, not obstacles. One of the most powerful mental habits of millionaires is their ability to focus on opportunity instead of obstacles. It's not that they don't see problems, they see them clearly, but their attention isn't stuck on what's wrong. It's always pulled toward what's possible. Most people are wired for safety. We're taught to scan for threats, avoid risk, and play it safe. That wiring might keep you physically alive, but financially, it keeps you small. It's what causes people to say things like, "Now's not the right time," or "I just don't want to take that kind of risk." These aren't logical conclusions, they're fear responses in disguise. Millionaire thinkers flip that script. When others freeze, they ask, where's the hidden opening? What's the advantage no one else sees yet? How can I position myself now for future upside? They understand that every challenge contains potential. That in uncertainty, most people retreat, leaving more space and upside for those who move forward. They don't ignore risk, they just focus more on upside than downside. They weigh danger, yes, but they lean into possibility. This is the same mindset that turns recessions into gold mines. While others pull back, millionaires step in. They buy undervalued assets, hire overlooked talent, and start companies in spaces others abandoned. Why? Because they're trained to look for value, not comfort. For them, the question isn't, is this hard? It's, is this worth it? This is what separates those who build wealth from those who only wish for it. The wealthy don't avoid obstacles, they move through them with a bias toward action. They assume that clarity comes from doing, not from waiting. And that's exactly what keeps them ahead. When you focus on opportunity, you stay open. You ask better questions. Instead of why me, you ask what now. Instead of seeing limitations, you see leverage. You don't get stuck in fear because your mind is anchored to vision, not circumstance. And this habit compounds. Because the more you focus on possibility, the more you find it. Your brain is like a search engine. It delivers what you keep asking for. If you focus on problems, you'll find more of them. But if you train yourself to look for creative ways forward, they'll start appearing where others only see walls. The millionaire mindset doesn't pretend everything is easy. It just refuses to give problems more power than progress. People with a millionaire mindset understand that every limitation is also a doorway if you know how to look. What most people see as a dead end, they treat as a challenge to redesign the path. They don't assume the rules are fixed. They ask, who made these rules, and do I really need to follow them to win? This way of thinking isn't reckless, it's strategic optimism. It's the decision to direct your energy towards solutions rather than problems. Millionaires know that their attention is a form of currency. What they focus on grows, so they guard that focus and spend it wisely. For example, imagine someone who loses a job. The average reaction might be fear, self-doubt, panic. But a wealthy thinker will process those emotions, then ask, what new door just opened? What skills can I monetize? Who do I know that might need what I offer? They shift out of reaction mode and into creation mode. Over time, this creates a completely different life. Two people might face the exact same external challenge, but one sees limitation and shuts down, while the other sees opportunity and levels up. Same moment, different mindset. Completely different outcome. The truth is, everyone faces setbacks, everyone has fears, doubts, and hard moments. But how you respond to those moments defines the trajectory of your future. The rich are not fearless, they've just trained themselves to act anyway. One powerful exercise is this: whenever you feel blocked, ask yourself, if I had to find an opportunity inside this challenge, what might it be? You might be surprised at what your mind comes up with. Even asking that question opens a new lane of thinking, one the average person never enters. It's also important to surround yourself with people who think this way. When you're around others who focus on opportunity, their mindset rubs off on you. They don't spiral in negativity. They trade ideas. They solve out loud. And just being in that energy reminds you of what's possible. In the end, this lesson comes down to a daily choice. Will you focus on what's blocking you or what's waiting for you on the other side of the block? Millionaires build lives not by avoiding obstacles, but by consistently reaching for opportunity, even when it hides behind uncertainty. Lesson 3. The rich value learning over looking smart. Most people want to look like they have it all figured out. They want to sound intelligent, appear successful, and be seen as competent. But the rich? They're not focused on appearances, they're focused on growth. And that means they're willing to look wrong, be the beginner, and stay uncomfortable if it leads to learning. Millionaires don't let ego get in the way of education. They'll raise their hand and ask the dumb question. They'll admit they don't know something. They'll hire coaches, read obsessively, and sit in rooms where they aren't the smartest person on purpose, because they understand that the real flex isn't what you already know, it's how fast you can learn what you don't. This is what psychologists call the growth mindset, the belief that your abilities, intelligence, and results can be developed over time. The opposite is a fixed mindset, where people believe their talents are set in stone. Fixed mindset thinkers are terrified of being wrong, failing, or looking foolish. But the wealthy know that failure is a teacher, not a verdict. Think of every wealthy person you admire. Behind their success is a long track record of mistakes, pivots, awkward first tries, and uncomfortable learning curves. But because they valued learning more than pride, they kept going, and that's why they got better. When you value learning, you stop tying your identity to being right. You don't need to defend what you already know. You get curious, you experiment. You ask, What am I missing here? Instead of pretending you already have the answer. This shows up in how the rich spend their time and money. They buy books instead of shoes. They go to seminars instead of clubs. They invest in mentors instead of distractions. They know that the return on knowledge outpaces almost any other investment because it multiplies everything else you do. This doesn't mean they never enjoy life. It means they prioritize becoming overperforming. While others try to appear successful, they're too busy building the foundation to actually be successful. The millionaire mindset is deeply rooted in humility. Not the kind that downplays your strengths, but the kind that says, there's always another level, and I'm willing to go learn it. That attitude doesn't just build wealth. It builds resilience, adaptability, and a lifelong edge in any field. The moment you stop needing to prove you're smart is the moment you start becoming unstoppable. That's because energy previously spent defending your identity can now be spent expanding it. The rich understand that being wrong today is often the price of being right tomorrow. One of the most valuable habits you'll find among millionaires is that they ask better questions. They don't ask, how do I look? They ask, what don't I see yet? They challenge their assumptions. They welcome feedback. And they constantly seek out people who've done what they haven't, because they know that real knowledge lives in experience, not just theory. When you value learning over looking smart, you start treating life as your classroom. Every situation becomes a lesson, every failure becomes feedback, and every person you meet becomes a potential mentor or mirror. You also stop judging yourself so harshly. People with a fixed mindset often fear failure because they think it means something about them. But the growth-minded know that failure is just part of the process. They miss shots, take losses, and get humbled. But they don't quit. They extract the lesson, adjust, and move forward faster next time. Another advantage, you stay ahead. The world is changing faster than ever. Economies, industries, technologies. Those who cling to being the expert fall behind. But the ones who stay in student mode, they adapt, they evolve. They stay relevant while others get stuck. So how do you build this mindset in daily life? Start by shifting your questions. Instead of asking, am I doing this right? Ask, what can I learn here? Instead of saying, I should already know this, say, this is something I'm becoming great at. These small shifts rewire your brain to pursue growth over perfection. Also, give yourself permission to learn in public. Launch the project before it's perfect. Share your process. Ask for help. Wealth doesn't come from hiding your ignorance. It comes from moving through it boldly. The rich aren't successful because they know everything. They're successful because they're committed to learning anything they need to succeed. And that's something you can start practicing right now. One question, one lesson, one decision at a time. Lesson 4. The rich prioritize long-term gains over short-term wins. The average person wants results fast, more money now, more comfort now, more recognition now, but the rich play a different game. They're not looking for instant gratification, they're building for scale, sustainability, and freedom. They think in years, not weekends. This mindset of delayed gratification is one of the most powerful wealth-building tools in the world. It's not flashy, it's not viral, but it works. Every time. Most people get caught in the dopamine loop of quick wins, the raise, the bonus, the nice shoes, the short vacation. It feels good, but it rarely leads to lasting change. The moment passes and they're back where they started, working harder to keep up. The wealthy understand something different. Real wealth is built slowly, then suddenly. It's the result of disciplined choices made consistently over time. They're willing to say no to short-term pleasure in exchange for long-term power. They're not thinking about how much money they can make this week. They're thinking about how much freedom they can build over the next decade. This shows up in how they invest. While most people chase fast profits, the rich are okay with compound growth. They put money into assets that might be boring today, but will pay them for life. Real estate, index funds, royalties, businesses. They don't need to look rich right now because they're becoming rich for real. It also shows up in how they work. While others search for shortcuts, the wealthy often do the hard, unglamorous things: building a brand, writing content, creating products, making offers, reinvesting income. They aren't hustling just for the next check, they're building leverage. This is why millionaires often look like they're moving slower in the beginning, but over time, they break away from the pack. The person who saved consistently, learned consistently, and built systems wins in the long run, while those who chased shiny objects are left restarting again and again. Think of it like planting a tree. At first, there's nothing but dirt. You water it, protect it, and wait. No one praises you. No one sees the roots growing underground. But eventually it breaks the surface. Then it grows faster. Then it bears fruit. And that fruit feeds you for life. The millionaire mindset is full of patience, but it's not passive. It's active, intentional patience. It says, I'm doing what matters now, so I don't have to scramble later. That's how the rich build lives they don't have to escape from, because they chose purpose over distraction and long-term power over temporary applause. One reason this mindset is so rare is because society constantly rewards speed. We're told to move fast, seize the moment, and not get left behind. But speed without direction is just motion. The rich aren't obsessed with doing things quickly, they're obsessed with doing the right things consistently. This is why you'll rarely see them gambling on trends or trying to impress others. They aren't thinking in quarters or social media likes, they're thinking in generational terms. They ask, will this decision still matter 5 years from now? 10? Will it still pay me or cost me later? This is how they make decisions about time, energy, relationships, and money. If something doesn't compound, if it doesn't grow in value over time, they usually say no. This is why they choose to read instead of binge, invest instead of spend, build instead of distract. Here's what this looks like in action. Saying no to unnecessary lifestyle upgrades so you can buy your first rental property. Spending weekends learning sales or marketing instead of mindlessly scrolling. Reinvesting profits into your business instead of buying a luxury car too early. To many people, these choices look boring or slow, but to the rich, they look like leverage because every disciplined choice buys them more freedom later. The irony? The people who delay gratification often reach their goals faster than those who chase fast results. Because while others start and stop a dozen times, the long-term thinker compounds their efforts. They're not starting over, they're scaling up. So how do you begin thinking like this? Start by asking longer-term questions. What decisions can I make today that will simplify my life a year from now? What am I doing consistently that's actually moving me forward? What could I stop doing that's costing me time and peace? Next, audit your habits. Are you acting from impulse or intention? Do your daily choices align with where you say you want to be? Long-term wealth is built one quiet decision at a time. No one will applaud you for skipping the party to build your future. But 5 years from now, they'll wonder how you did it. The rich think like architects. While others chase the weekend, they're laying the foundation for a life that doesn't need escaping. That's the reward for thinking long. That's how wealth becomes inevitable. Lesson 5. The rich think in systems, not just effort. Most people are trained to think in terms of effort. Work more, earn more, hustle harder, get further. It's a direct, linear mindset. If I want more, I need to do more. But the rich play a different game. They don't just work harder, they build systems that multiply their results without multiplying their effort. This is one of the biggest mindset shifts on the path to wealth. The average person asks, how can I make more money? The rich ask, how can I create a machine that makes money with or without me? Effort has limits. You only have so many hours in a day, so much energy to give. But systems, whether it's a business, an investment portfolio, an automated funnel, or a team, can scale far beyond what you can do alone. That's the key to financial freedom. Think of a content creator who publishes one high-value video that continues to earn views, subscribers, and ad revenue for months. Or a course creator who builds a product once and sells it thousands of times. Or an investor who earns passive income from assets they no longer have to manage daily. That's a system. Millionaires don't fall in love with the grind. They fall in love with building things that grow on their own. They still work hard, especially early on, but the effort is always directed at building repeatable, reliable infrastructure that does the work for them in the future. Here's the difference. The average person creates income by showing up every day. The wealthy create income by designing something once that pays them again and again. And it's not just about money. They think in systems when it comes to time, energy, relationships, and decisions. They automate, delegate, and batch. They remove friction wherever possible, because every unnecessary decision or repeated task is a leak in the system, and they're in the business of plugging leaks. This mindset also helps them solve bigger problems. Instead of asking, how can I get this done? They ask, how can this get done without me? It's not laziness, it's leverage. It forces creative thinking. It pushes them to hire smarter, document processes, and build assets instead of habits. This is why so many wealthy people seem calm, even when they're operating at a high level. It's not that they're doing less, it's that they've created systems that carry the weight. While others are stuck in the cycle of constant doing, they've moved on to optimizing and scaling. And it all starts with one simple question. What am I doing repeatedly that I could build a system for instead? Once you start thinking in systems, everything changes. Your to-do list gets shorter but more strategic. Your income becomes more stable but less dependent on your personal output. And perhaps most importantly, your time becomes your own again. This doesn't mean systems are perfect. They require maintenance, updates, and attention. But once a system is built, it becomes something you can refine, instead of something you have to rebuild from scratch every day. Think about the opposite. Effort-based thinking without systems. That's the person who burns out trying to do everything themselves. They're always busy, but never feel like they're moving forward. Their results are tied directly to how hard they work that week. And if they stop, everything stops. Now compare that to someone who thinks like an architect. They may spend more time up front designing the right structure, setting up workflows, documenting processes, investing in tools. But once it's built, the system works even when they rest. This is also how the rich buy back their time. Once their income systems are in place, they can reinvest their energy into higher leverage activities, partnerships, strategy, creative vision, or even rest and inspiration, because their money isn't tied to hours, it's tied to assets and infrastructure. So how do you start building systems? Start small. Ask yourself, what tasks do I repeat every week that I could batch, automate, or delegate? What's something I'm manually managing that could be set up to run without me? What processes do I rely on that I haven't written down or structured yet? You don't need a team or fancy software to start. Even a simple checklist, calendar block, or email template is a form of systemization. The point is to stop doing everything from scratch and start building once so it pays off forever. Over time, these systems compound. Your business runs smoother, your mind feels clearer, your growth accelerates, not because you're working harder, but because you've built something that works for you. That's how the rich create freedom. Not just by earning more, but by designing systems that let them earn more with less. The millionaire mindset is not about being busier. It's about being smarter, more intentional, and more scalable. Lesson 6. The rich feel worthy of wealth. This may be the most underrated difference of all. The rich don't just think differently about money, they feel differently about it. They believe they are worthy of success, worthy of abundance, worthy of earning more, having more, and becoming more. That sense of worthiness is not arrogance. It's a deep, quiet belief that I am allowed to have more. And that belief shapes every decision they make. You'd be surprised how many people unconsciously sabotage their finances, not because they lack skill, but because they don't feel like they deserve more. They make just enough to stay afloat, never raise their prices, avoid asking for the sale, or feel uncomfortable investing in themselves. Why? Because somewhere deep down they're carrying beliefs like, people like me don't get rich. If I succeed, others will judge me. I'm not smart enough, ready enough, experienced enough. Those are identity-level blocks, and unless you change them, no strategy will stick. The rich work from a different internal script. They see wealth not as a moral issue, but as a natural result of growth, contribution, and value. They don't feel guilty for wanting more. They know that becoming wealthy doesn't take away from others. It expands what's possible for everyone. Here's the paradox. Those who feel most unworthy of wealth often chase it with the most desperation. They try to prove they're good enough by achieving success. But since they haven't resolved that internal story, even if they do make money, they'll find ways to lose it, avoid it, or feel anxious about it. That's why many lottery winners go broke, or why entrepreneurs sabotage a thriving business. It's not the money, it's the mismatch between their inner identity and their external results. The identity always wins. Millionaires are not immune to insecurity, but they work on it. They do the inner work, not just the outer hustle. They ask hard questions. What did I learn about money growing up? Who told me success was selfish, wrong, or dangerous? What parts of me still believe I have to suffer to be worthy? And then they rewrite those stories. Because here's the truth. Wealth flows to people who can receive it, not just chase it. You can't receive what you secretly believe you don't deserve. So how do you build a stronger sense of worthiness? You start by noticing the language you use, out loud and in your head. Do you downplay your wins, apologize for charging, say things like, I could never afford that, or that's for other people, not me? These phrases might feel harmless, but they reveal what you actually believe is possible for you. Next, look at how you respond to opportunities. Do you hesitate to invest in yourself? Do you secretly feel uncomfortable making more than your parents did? Do you procrastinate when things are going too well? All of this points to a belief system that may still be anchored in fear or limitation, not truth. The rich actively dismantle these old beliefs. They remind themselves daily, if necessary, that wealth is not about being better than others. It's about stepping into full ownership of your value. It's about knowing you're capable of learning, capable of earning, capable of leading, and letting that truth guide your actions. Many people think mindset work is fluffy or abstract, but this is the work that drives everything else. If you feel unworthy of wealth, no amount of tactics will stick because deep down, you'll always find a way to sabotage the outcome. Worthiness isn't something you earn after you succeed. It's something you claim before so that you can succeed. Here's a simple exercise. Each morning, ask yourself, what would I do today if I already felt worthy of abundance? Let that guide your choices, your tone, your prices, your posture, your next bold move. Because when you feel worthy, you show up differently. You take up space. You speak clearly. You build. You receive. You lead. That's the energy that attracts opportunity. That's the foundation that holds your success. And that's why the millionaire mindset isn't just about strategy, it's about self-image. You don't become rich so you can finally feel worthy. You feel worthy, and then you start building like someone who is. Conclusion: the mindset that builds real wealth. By now, you've seen what truly separates the rich from the rest. It's not luck, it's not timing, and it's not access. It's mindset. The millionaire mindset isn't just about thinking positively or dreaming big. It's about developing mental patterns that shape your decisions, your habits, and your identity every single day. It's about who you become when you stop thinking like a consumer and start thinking like a creator. Let's recap the 6 core mindset shifts. First, the rich believe they create their reality. They take full ownership of their outcomes. They don't wait, they build. Second, they focus on opportunity, not obstacles. They train their minds to see what's possible, even when others see problems. Third, they value learning over looking smart. They're not trying to impress, they're trying to improve. Fourth, they prioritize long-term gains over short-term wins. They think in decades, not days. Fifth, they think in systems, not just effort. They build scalable engines that grow with or without them. And sixth, they feel worthy of wealth. They believe success belongs to them, not because of ego, but because they've done the inner work to receive it. These shifts don't happen overnight. They're built over time, one thought, one action, one decision at a time. And the best part? They're available to anyone who's willing to do the work. You don't need to be born into wealth to become wealthy. You just need to start thinking like someone who already is. So here's your invitation. Start seeing problems as opportunities. Start trading short-term pleasure for long-term power. Start building systems instead of relying on more hustle. And above all, start showing up like someone who belongs in the room, because you do. Wealth isn't something you chase, it's something you grow into. And now you've got the blueprint, the rest is up to you.